be back from the break. You're still watching Smart Men's Business. This morning, of course, your daily Kickstarter, as we are here to bring you that relevant information, quite very vital for your personal growth and development. And if you're a CEO, decision making and implementation at the same time. I'm Andrew Barije, Masi Katsume, and Jerome Paulson here, the entire crew, the Smart Men's Business crew, right here to drive your business positively. But of course, before we proceed into any further related discussion, don't forget Zabu. The markets have already opened. Zabu is a platform from Altex which has enabled you to trade government bonds and securities for as little as 15,000 Ugandan shillings. Now the markets open every 8:15 a.m. to 3:15 p.m. Monday up to Friday, except on the weekends and the public holidays where these markets can't be accessed. But away from that, you have the rest of the days to capitalize and make yourself quite some huge money. Now, like this week, we only had one public holiday. That is Eid on Wednesday. So you had 4 days for this week to accumulate some profits for you as you buy government bonds and securities. You can choose to buy a 5-year bond, a short-term bond, a long-term, any of that. Now, Zabu says, my money, my future, and Alto East Africa tells you, do something new for yourself come the year 2023. Okay. Now, of course, heading straight into our insight this morning, something in line with what we call Islamic banking, a package, of course, which has been passed by Parliament, of course, despite the few issues that they had when it came to interest, saying that because some of the people, the members of Parliament were saying interest is against the Quran. I mean, it doesn't apply to the Quran. You know, the only aspect, probably the only costs that you're going to incur are transactional costs. That is, if I borrow 100 million from the bank, I'm supposed to return back 100, right? Mm. So the only fee, what they called markup, is just that additional transactional fees and that, but it's non-profit, which caused quite some sorts of issues. But well, there were lots of discussions, and I remember the Speaker of Parliament had to tell them to kind of sit down and harmonize that entire aspect. Mm. Yeah, but you see, I realized the aspect of spirituality into these aspects, how committed the Muslims are when it comes to some of these matters, and from the Quran reflecting into our financial lives with no exploitation.
Well, I think what they really want us to have with this kind of banking, Islamic banking, is basically also rotating around the Sharia law, as to what, because the Sharia law will be creating the regulations as much, even though the Bank of Uganda has to be beyond that. Well, of course, when you come to think of this, it's quite different from the ordinary conventional banking services, because ideally, with Islamic banking, it is non-profitable.
It's non-profitable.
Whereby if you're to go for a loan, you're paying the exact amount of money at the end of it all after getting it. And of course, when you come to think of this particular situation, how Islamic banking is likely to operate in Uganda, that's in case it happens. What the people who are pushing for Islamic banking say is banks can offer Islamic banking and at the same time offer the other conventional services that have been available at the moment. And with the Islamic banking, a little bit more about how this particular one will operate, just in case it does pass, of course. There is mobilization of deposits. Under the mobilization of deposits, you get to realize the existing legal and regulatory framework in Uganda allows for customer deposit mobilization through the following arrangements. One, there is profit-sharing investment accounts, where for example, fixed deposit accounts in that account where an account holder allows the bank to invest the funds on their behalf, either in various projects or various investments. And of course, the bank and the account holder share profits, losses arising from the investments. So this is where Islamic banking comes into the situation, whereby you're sharing the profits and at the same time you will share the losses. And of course, this is where you get to realize that it is more of to help out people with the banking kind of situation, changing the new face of banking philosophies. And I think with this kind of situation, you realize that profit-sharing investment accounts, I think for you as a person, is the other aspect about Islamic banking is that they give you advice on where you are going to invest. Because if the kind of investment, you know, unlike banks whereby a bank will actually come to you if you want a loan of 100 million and you want to invest in real estate per se, and the bank expects that money back in 2 years. Now for, for Islamic banking, they want you to invest in, let me say, tangible assets, I should say. Assets that you can easily touch or you can easily see. Because they believe in this way you're going to be generating instant money. It's going to be a return to investment instantly. Unlike at times in banks where they will give you other options, in, for example, investing in treasury bonds, in government bonds, treasury bills and the like. So I think it's more of looking at it in a way that it's not only a non-profitable venture, but you're looking at Islamic banking as an opportunity for traders to generally earn from their money. You're saving directly, and then there is no element of you expecting to lose any amount of money because of the fact that there are bank charges and interest and stuff like that. Okay. So I think this is where you realize that some of the people in the commercial banking sector or those in the ordinary kind of conventional banking services are not pushing for the same because they do believe it's more like creating a competition of who is more fairer than the other. Because with the Sharia law coming in context here, you get to realize that at times people would definitely prefer going into Islamic banking once they get to tap into it, because you do realize most of the traders, for example in Uganda, are not fanatics of saving in banks.
Absolutely.
And we can all agree with us because of the fact that banks have different charges. If you're using an automated teller machine per se, that is your ATM, to acquire money, to withdraw money, there are times where you're going to realize that there are charges attached. I do know of some banks that offer Visa services, but the mere fact that you're withdrawing money using a different bank account, the charge is 8,000 Ugandan shillings. Now you can easily see for a business person, you're not making no money.
Exactly.
And at the end of it all, you want to at least look for a banking opportunity that is giving you the advantage. For example, people who are actually saving in Chikubo, who actually trade in Chikubo, you realize that most of them get their money, put the money in the bag, drive off back home, either save in circles or go up there and set up apartments, rentals, name them, because they do realize saving it in the bank, it's going to be static, and the bank is actually charging you for that saving, because the bank is definitely commercial and profit oriented, and so you don't blame it. And at the end of it all, you realize Islamic banking may be the opportunity for people to get to understand it more, and these are discussions that are continuing, but they've been there for quite some time. Because when you look strongly back to 2016, by the way, in relation to that, the Financial Institution Act of 2004 was amended in 2016. The amendments included specific provisions allowing for the establishment of a fully fledged Islamic financial institutions for existing financial institutions to offer Islamic banking alongside the other conventional banking services. So it's like institutions can offer both for their clients to choose which is suitable for them.
All right. There was a question about these packages being introduced in the different financial institutions, and the question is, is this an ideal model for the financial institutions that I walk into the commercial bank and I say, you know what, among all your services, I want the Islamic banking package, and well, there was this, of course, we need to also find out whether banks will be in position to adapt to this. Well, I know it's being passed, but at the end of the day, is it mandatory for my financial institution to have that package? I think it's sort of voluntarily. I choose to have it. But anyway, let us see how that moves around. Because if that means if I go to the bank and I tell you I want the Islamic banking package, I need a loan of 50 million. I'm returning back 15 million.
I want to say first and foremost, it goes back to the kind of banks that you see with the Sharia law. You realize it's more like creating fairness because it's religious oriented.
Exactly.
But for a bank is commercially driven. and profit driven, so they expect an interest at the end of the day. And well, when you bringing up an option of a non-profitable kind of situation, it's more like you're doing it for a brotherhood and something like that. So you realize, as a banker, for example, someone who has opened up his bank, or the bankers, definitely, we all know bankers. If a banker is giving money into something, they expect, because people have been saving their money there, so that means me, if I'm to borrow you someone's money, you have to give me my interest.
Exactly.
Because this is where the banks make money from, by the way. Banks don't make a lot of money from savings. Because at times there are people who actually have dormant accounts seated there. Normally banks make this money through these withdrawals, continuous active accounts, where you're depositing and withdrawing, withdrawing. That means someone who is out there going in for a loan, you're withdrawing. And at the end of it all, there is an interest you're going to give us. It depends on the time frame of your loan, or how long it will take you to clear off that loan. So I want to believe I think this is where the discussions are becoming a little bit trickier and economic per se. But well, we shall wait and try to understand more if banks are willing to adopt this, and if Islamic banking can be combined to the ordinary conventional banking services that we do have in the country. But then it's a continuous conversation, and we shall be definitely giving the viewers here an insightful of the same, for those who are pushing it behind, to break it down for us to understand it fully. Because you see, ideally what we do know so far is what we are giving you.
Exactly.
And of course, in the same kind of situation, we will then correct where we've misinformed as well. But then at the end of it all, you do realize in the kind of conversation, because this is a continuous kind of discussion, and it will be of grateful impact once it comes to pass, and of course for the Ugandans to fully understand of what importance and what advantage it has as Islamic banking over the other ordinary conventional banking. But for one, it is non-profitable.
Non-profitable. Marcy, what's your take on Islamic banking?
Well, of course, like Jerome said, this will be an ongoing conversation. Like it started on it's been on for some time, and of course, people. This is meant to benefit people out there.
It's more actually, it has an element of charity.
Yes, I mean, of course, this is one of the pillars of Islam, is the Islamic faith. So definitely, for it not being profitable, that means, I mean, probably there's a way they're going to benefit out of this indirectly. Means we do not know, but definitely it's going to help someone out there worried about the interests. And of course, that delaying of paying the loan, and of course, definitely there is a lot going on with people. When it comes to people, that is why some people don't get loans, because they're afraid of interest. But if you get 10 million, that's 10 million. You're going to pay 10 million. Definitely, it's going to help someone out there that has been struggling and finding means of getting money to start up. And of course, these loans are going to be for tangible things. You have to get the loan and of course invest it in something. This is going to bring back money maybe as soon as possible, or maybe it can be seen as something you have really invested. And of course, that is what we are targeting for, to grow our economy, to see that people come out of poverty and of course enjoy the benefits of their hard work.
Okay, thank you for that insight and review. Well, now let's have this discussion that really transpired in the Parliament in relation to this.
The government did not agree. The government present came and we met them. The committee went into its own meeting after government had left, and there remained one issue, which is very simple, which we can flash out and pass this bill. And that one issue is only on the definition of interest. Because, Right Honorable Speaker, if you permit me to speak about why we still hold a very strong opinion on a definition of interest, is that essentially, Right Honorable Speaker, interest under Islamic banking is riba. The core principle of Islamic banking is on a basis that it is charitable, that it goes to help the disadvantaged to leverage their position. And in the whole transaction, there is nothing like a profit. Even there is no interest or income to tax under Islamic banking financing. Now, the framers of this bill simply didn't interrogate, even if any of us who have iPad Google, which I can ask all members who want to contribute to Google, that just put Google meaning of riba. Even Google will give you the definition of riba, and it goes ahead to define what riba is in the Google definition. It simply means the differences in Islamic banking is that if I'm going to, first of all, Islamic banking is not speculative. It has a quid pro quo. If you are going to give me money, Right Honorable Speaker, bank to give me money to buy a car, the bank will buy a car in its own name. That's why in the stamp duty exercise bill, we never put a tax when the bank is registering that car, because there is no actual ownership, it's in a trust. Now, when I'm paying back, let me say 100 million, I'm supposed to pay back 100 million. The only difference can be is in transaction fees that are involved, which we call markups. In the whole transaction, it's against the Quranic teaching to assume there will be excess money above the markup cost, and there is no income in that transaction. So it's just minimal pay for fees to process, to transact and complete that transaction. Now, the framers of the Income Act look for income, and therefore they assume there is a profit, and therefore it will attract a tax. That's why in the position of the committee, which I strongly believe is the right interpretation of the law under Sharia, is that where there is interest, we replace it with mark up. Because the moment we manage the world outside here, the moment you a very good intention will be decampaigned on a basis that is against the teachings of Islam or against the Sharia law. And therefore, and that is Right Honorable Speaker Attorney General, all the witnesses that came before our parliament, Uganda Muslim Supreme Council, the Uganda's Muslim Lawyers Association, that all appeared, were almost agreeable to other things, but they voiced concern with that issue. That's why, and it's at the core of what is called Islamic banking. Not to go into those murky waters, we request government this time, this is a very noble cause, long overdue, to agree with our position. And where there is interest, we put markup. That will simply address that issue. In our humble view, that's a contentious issue. I've been speaking to many of my colleagues who are Muslims in this parliament to sell your position, but it seems like it's unsellable because it will offend the Quran. It's that serious.
Honorable Speaker, we have tried to harmonize this matter. This law we are writing here is not being written in Uganda only. It's been written in other places. And for purposes of guiding the House today, I came with a copy of the Kenyan tax law, which is very close to us here, and has the definition of interest in here for Islamic law. And it has worked in Kenya for a couple of years, and it has worked very well. Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, this tax law uses the word interest 126 times. So the moment you change that word interest in this tax law, you must allow us to go back and redo all the 126 items that appear in the Income Tax Act which deal with interest. We are defining the word interest for purposes of Islamic law with that expectation that under Islamic law, there is no markup. And if there is no markup, then it will be zero, there will be no interest. Because if, I haven't finished. Let me finish.
Is that what you've included, that there is no markup under Islamic law?
That is the definition that is being created here, that for purposes of Islamic law, it has to only be that amount which is higher than what they agreed to pay back. So the issue here, Right Honorable Speaker, is that this definition is not only in Uganda, it's here. And I would like to lay a copy of the Kenya tax law, and it defines interest similar to ours.
Chair, I want to thank you. We have had a very fruitful discussion where our view was to have the committee report position maintained. The learned Attorney General and this side of the opinion that the wording of the bill, where business is conducted under Islamic banking, the provision of interest and taxes will not apply. And that's the import of KK. KK. No, not KK, the Attorney General.
It is a provision of KK?
KKA.
KK.
Yes, Chair.
One.
Chair, we were trying to look at what the bill says in relation to clauses 5, 6, and 7, in relation to the discussion we've been having. And the interpretation of the learned Attorney General is that our concerns are well catered for under KKA, which deals with Islamic financial businesses that have been defined.
Thank you.
Matters to do with Islamic backing in there, and definitely it was finally passed. They came to harmonization in terms of the interest aspect, something which had caused some sorts of havoc in there. Anyway, before we get into the break, don't forget the markets on the Zabo platform, which have already opened. Now, for you to be a part of this, it's quite very simple. Start tonight to hash. It's the code for you there, which will avail you with a number of options where you will be able to buy government bonds and securities for just as little as 15,000 Ugandan shillings. Yes, now the markets open at 8:15 a.m. They are closing to 3:15 p.m. and this is effective Monday up to Friday, except on the weekends and the public holidays when these markets are closed. But despite the fact you have the rest of the days to capitalize and make yourself quite some huge profit, something which I believe is quite very key and instrumental for your personal growth and development, most especially you being a trader out there and also as somebody chasing a career. This is one of the ways you can get yourself a side income, very key in the future and in the long term. Zabo made this a reality. It's the 21st century. You should own government bonds and securities. Now Zabo says my money, my future. And also East Africa says do something new for yourself come the year 2023. Well, now let's get into the break, and we have our own ground discussions in the pipeline when we return.